Clicker is not working. Okay. Any investment that anybody makes in any field is about risk versus return. More so in the GFC, we heard the terminology of risk versus return all the time. If you want to take a very safe risk and you want to buy a government bond or you want to put your money in the bank, you're going to get a very low return out of that. If you are taking a greater and greater risk, then you expect the opportunity of getting a greater and greater reward. Are car dealerships in general a risky investment? That's up to you to determine whether you think it's a risky investment, but it certainly is not a very, very safe investment. And therefore, if you are going to invest in a car dealership, you expect to get a fair reward for the risks that you take. Now, of course, we in this industry get a very, very high return. For every dollar we bring in the front door, we get somewhere between 2 and 3 cents profit out of that dollar. I'm quoting somebody that's not a sponsor today, but the Deloitte's Profit Focus reports up to July this year, so 7 months, that the 700 car dealerships that report through their organisation have reported a 2.1% return on sales for the first 7 months of this year. Now, the question is that a fair reward for the risk that car dealers take? Of course, Australia's easy. It was mentioned earlier on. In the US, there are 51 brands. These numbers are 2010-11 numbers, and in fact, the vehicle sales in the US have rebounded strongly since then. So for every car brand in the US, there's 230,000 sales. There are more car brands in Australia than any of these 4 other countries. We have the lowest number of vehicle sales out of these 4 countries, the lowest population, and we only have 15,757 cars per brand within Australia. So we are in the most competitive car market in the world. So let me come back to the fact. We have no real voice, we have very little credibility, and we have apathy from most dealers. If we continue with the status quo, I believe we risk an unsustainable future. So do dealers deserve an alternative? I believe there's an industry case from those stats that I put forward that suggest that the industry deserves to have some representation and some strong representation. I don't believe that an improved AADA, I believe an improved AADA should actually be encouraged by the whole industry. I don't believe there is any part of the industry that would be worse off from having a strong, improved AADA. In fact, a credible AADA voice with state and federal governments would strengthen the whole of our industry. No professionally operated manufacturer, and I use the word professionally operated, or importer will object or fear a professional AADA, and I also emphasise the word a professional AADA. This isn't about strengthening a AADA so that it can be used to fight any argument that's ever put forward by a dealer that's got a problem with somebody. In reality, the professionalism of the franchise automotive retail industry, in my view, is at stake. I'm going to use one internal AAPEGA's slide just to emphasise what I believe is important for the future. AAPEGA's, as mentioned earlier on, is 100 years old this year. We've survived 100 years in the automotive retail industry. We started as an automotive retailer. Today, we are a pure automotive retailer. We have 5 key groups of stakeholders. They are our shareholders, our owners, our employees, our partners, who we break into 2 different categories, our manufacturers and our suppliers. We have our customers as stakeholders that we sell goods to, and then the local communities in which we work in. We have this terminology that is not just a slide that we use, and in fact this is the first time this slide has been used externally. We have this terminology inside AAPEGA's that says it is about optimising for all stakeholders rather than maximising for one. We groom a lot of young professional managers. We emphasise to them throughout their training that if you don't learn within APEGAs that it's about optimising for all, that you won't last very long. We constantly explain to our managers that if you are pushed by a manufacturer to increase volume and increase market share, then it is your job to try and increase volume and increase market share. But it is only your job to do that if you can work out how you can do it and still make money doing it so that you can continue to pay the employee base and you can continue to serve the shareholders. Because if you can't work out how to do that and make more money doing it, then you shouldn't be doing it. But I want to highlight that point. We still emphasise that you should aim to achieve it because we are trying to deliver for our manufacturers, because that is a role as a franchise operator, but we're trying to do it in a way that every single stakeholder benefits from it. And the reality is, if you don't do that, you will not be sustainable. Because if you ever have a business model that only maximises for one of those stakeholders, it will work for a short period of time, but only for a short period of time before the other stakeholders start to suffer and you will lose their support. And I worry, people ask me in the investment community when I do investment presentations, what keeps me up at night, what keeps me, stops me from sleeping at night. I worry about the longer term for the younger generation coming through our industry, that I'm going to be able to sustain the wages of those 3,000 employees, and I'm going to be able to continue to sustain an industry that's got lots of challenges ahead. And if people believe, when I talk about shareholders and employees on the right-hand side, if people, it is on the right-hand side for you as well, on the right-hand side, if people believe that as the CEO of APEGAs, I'm concentrating more on shareholders, let me just highlight a fact. Last year we made $55 million of after-tax profit that went to the shareholders. I've already declared earlier on we paid $213 million in wages. The reality is the employees actually get more than the shareholders, and I worry about both those sides as much as I do about any other of the stakeholders. Now, I put it to this organisation, there's no reason why that is unique. I put it that if you just swapped APEGAs for the entire franchise dealer network and put the words AADA in the middle, then those stakeholders would be exactly the same. The major difference would be that the shareholders in most cases might be the single owner of that individual dealership rather than, in my case, 4,500, 5,000 shareholders. But other than that, I put to you that it is no different. And I want to emphasise so that, and I don't mind that there are manufacturers in the room, and in fact I wish more manufacturers were in the room. Any strengthened AADA to get a better representation for a sustainable future for car dealers is not about car dealers having more power than anybody else and using that power unwisely. It is about getting a fair representation so that all stakeholders can have a fair go for the future. God, that sounds like a bloody political comment, that one, a fair go. Please cut that out if you're a journalist in the room. It is about fairness within this model that allows the whole industry to be sustained. So I come back to this comment. We're a very capital-intensive industry, we're a very labour-intensive industry, and it's about risk versus reward. Today, I put it to everybody that car dealers in general across the whole country are in fact taking too great a risk for too low a reward. Now there's two ways that things can be changed in that. You can have utopia, and that is where we lower the risk and we get higher reward, and I wish that could happen, but I'm not praying for that. Or we can get a much greater reward, accepting the risk is going to stay the same, or we can attempt to lower the risk. And in a lot of cases, a strengthened AADA moving forward, in my view, is as much about lowering the risk as it is anything to do with about increasing the reward. Because if you do have a lower risk, then a lower reward is actually quite reasonable. I don't mean lower than we're getting today, I just mean not greater. Okay, so I come back to just finish off. We aren't credible at the moment. As I said, my first time I've ever been to a AADA because I haven't seen the value in coming to a AADA in the past. I believe it is essential, and I don't believe I'm the only person in Australia in the car industry that hasn't been to a AADA that is now believing we need to do something greater for the future. There is a great groundswell around all the dealers. I've not spoken to a dealer in the last couple of years on this topic that has not said that we need to improve our organisation moving forward. The status quo, as I said, in my view, will lead to an unsustainable future. So I've answered, I believe, in the scale comment about the fact that dealers deserve an alternative. So do dealers want an alternative? And the reality is, this clicker, the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, it is up to you. It is seriously up to you whether you want to engage and you want to get involved as car dealers in this room to basically put forward the fact that we as an organisation, and the panel we're just about to talk about it, need to strengthen our own industry case so that we are actually able to attend an event in 10 years' time and all be here again. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Martin, for those positive and encouraging remarks. It's good to see that you can see